Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Coach the Coach Radio. Brought to you by the Business RadioX Ambassador Program, the no-cost business development strategy for coaches who want to spend more time serving local business clients and less time selling them. Go to brxambassador.com to learn more. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Coach the Coach Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Frank Kitchen with Frank Kitchen Enterprises. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Lee. Thanks for having me today.
Well, before we get into things, tell us a little bit about Frank Kitchen Enterprises. How you serving folks?
All right, so Frank Kitchen Enterprises, we're coming up on 6 years now this June, and what we do is we actually work with organizations who want their people to break through mental and physical barriers to live the dreams they hunger for. So quite simply, we offer fundraising services, coaching services, and keynote speaking. And a lot of it is just based off of my own personal experiences when I was working the 9 to 5.
So that was the impetus of your whole, for all your programs? You were working kind of a traditional job, and then you decided to go out on your own? Somewhat.
Yeah, I know you know a little bit of the story, but the ultimate piece was I wanted to become a professional speaker. And I was working towards it, kind of. I really wasn't putting the full effort. So I was working at a college for a little bit, and then I moved when I met my wife, and I moved out west. And then I was just trying to find some jobs to keep the lights on and pay the bills. And then ultimately, what I was saying, I wanted to step out and become this professional speaker and own my own business. The company I was working for, it was June 17th, 2015. They called me in for a meeting. I thought I was going in for a promotion, and they go, "Yeah, this is your last week." And I got fired on Father's Day with my wife pregnant. So that was the impetus of my business was, okay, we've got a 2-year-old, and then how do I take care of this, child on the way and, take care of my wife also.
So now when that happened, for a lot of folks, that's a gut punch, like how am I going to recover from something like this? They can get into a lot of maybe victimizing themselves, like why me? I don't deserve this. What helped you kind of push through this and to take your career to a new level?
Well, I was going to say 2 things, but 3 things happened that weekend. Number 1 was his Father's Day weekend, and we are going to my wife's parents' house. So now I've got to go talk to my father-in-law and explain to him that, guess what? I lost my job, and I've got this big dream of being a professional speaker. Happy Father's Day. And, my wife goes, well, hey, number 2, I was like, well, you've got a speaker showcase lined up this weekend. Why don't you take my dad with you? He's never seen you. He's a marketing PR guy. Take him with you. Maybe he'll give you some feedback. So I took him with me, and while we go and do the speech, I've got a couple hundred people in the room. I'm looking at him in the back of the room. He's checking things out and he's nodding his head. But then at the end, he pulls me to the side and he goes, that was amazing. He goes, this is what you're born to do. Let me know what I can do to support you. So now that I've got my wife backing me, I've got my father-in-law backing me. Then I reached out to my network. I wasn't afraid to reach out and said, hey, you know what, everybody is like, I lost my job, but here's what my big dream is. And I always share on stage, if you're afraid to share your dream, you're afraid to live it. I shared it with my network, and my network didn't beat me up. They actually all offered support, and several offered me job opportunities. So that's just where it started, was not taking that gut punch, but pretty much explaining to people, hey, I just took this punch. How can you help me out?
And that's a great lesson for folks. And I remember that movie that comes out every Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life kind of thing happening, where the person is devastated and then their community comes to the rescue, and they didn't realize the impact they were having on all these folks that wanted to help. Is that kind of what happened?
I mean, that was kind of what happened to me. I mean, I was going to groups and like, why are you doing this? And like, well, you did this when we were down, so this is the way we're going to pay it forward to you. So as you said, yes, several groups just reached out to me where they, hey, I remember when you did this. I remember you. How can I help out? And it was, it was amazing just to realize, okay, there are people out there who care. I've got a friend who says, Frank, there's more positive in the world than negative. We have to take the time to look for it and show it. So for me, I was always seeing the negative that was out there and thinking that, okay, I don't think, I couldn't think about the possibilities. And then I had this mindset shift that weekend of, let's see what opportunities are out there. And once you can focus and going in the right direction, amazing things will happen.
Now, when you kind of had that mental shift, then what kind of action steps did you take to keep that fire burning?
Well, the main fire burning was the fact of I've got, two sets of eyes looking at me with a third set on the way. And the case was when you're trying to do something for yourself, you can kind of take some time off, or you don't push yourself as hard. But when you realize there are other people, living people depending on you, that was the first thing to, really just stoke the fire. And then the other piece was I'm going, okay, I really haven't put the full effort into it. So it's either, sink or swim. And I'm going, okay, I'm teaching all these people how to break through their mental and physical barriers. Okay, let's go ahead and, practice what I preach. Let's hire myself. Let's make me the very first client to come in. So pretty much I hired, my company to take care of me so I could actually go out and, live the dream that I hungered for, which was to be the speaker.
So then what were some of the things you did at first to then, kind of monetize this dream?
Well, the first thing was, as I said, I reached out to my network, and I reached out to my network saying, hey, I've got this big dream of being a speaker. Please let me know when you have opportunities. And within that first week and a half, just reaching out to people, phone calls, emails, I built out a 1-week speaking, if you want to call it a tour, where I was going to Ohio, and for 5 straight days, I spoke to different groups. So that was the first piece for monetization. And then I've been planting some seeds before. So then I also got a phone call for a group who goes, hey, Frank, we would love for you to come out and speak for us for several days during the middle of the summer, and then for a full week at the end of the summer. And that just blew my mind, because when I was working the 9 to 5, I had to watch my vacation time, and I had to be, watch, how often I was leaving. Well, when I didn't have those restrictions, my wife goes, hey, you can go out for as long as you want to now. That just changed. So the big one was just to reach out to my network and let my network know what that big passion was to put the full effort in. But as I said, I've been doing some teaching and some coaching on the side, but it wasn't full time. So the case was I got to practice what I preach.
Now, when you went out to the marketplace and said, hey, I'm Frank and I'm available, me a little bit, were they then kind of giving you some ideas about this is how I want you to work with us? Or were you kind of presenting them, okay, I have this speech I can give, I have this workshop I can give, I have this coaching program? Or were you kind of listening to them and they were kind of helping you shape that early on?
I mean, you're spot on. It was a combination of a little bit of all of it. But the first piece for me was I really didn't have coaching lined up at this point. I didn't have fundraising. So speaking was the main thing I was thinking about. And as I said, at this point, I've been speaking professionally for about 6 years, but I hadn't tried to make it full time. So it was just one of those deals, side hustle every now and then on the weekends. So I reached out to all the people and go, hey, knowing when people book their speakers. So for schools and school districts, hey, I know that you have your orientation or your welcome back weeks. I have this program, can I come out and speak for you? It's on leadership. I'm like, okay. But at the same point, they go, hey, Frank, we know you. Do you have something on this? Because people recognize before I had done management training, I had done leadership, I had done some stuff as far as team building. So they just started to, ask me what they wanted. So I started to listen to my clients and I was like, okay, well, what do they want? And as I started to listen to see what they wanted, then when I started to make the phone calls and emails, I started just putting that in there because it's like, okay, well, that's what the audience wants. Let's sell that to them.
Now, you mentioned fundraising. How do you help a company with fundraising?
So during this process, I'm looking to, bring in any funds that I can. And what had happened was I had worked for an auction school, and I'd help them with the recruitment, and I'd help them with, managing the classes and getting everything certified. So I'd worked in education. And some of the people I reached out to were my friends who were fundraising auctioneers. So during this process, they go, well, Frank, you've worked in training. You know how to handle a microphone. You've done event planning because you used to bring speakers and people in when you worked for the college and for the group. Would you like to come and volunteer and help us out? Which meant I was just going there to help track numbers. And so for about a year, I was just really observing, all these auctioneers. And I finally said to them, I was like, hey, I had some people where I speak for, and they've asked me to jump on the microphone and MC their event, or said, hey, Frank, can you get people to put money into an envelope? I was like, would you be willing to train me? So now, not only were they going for speaking, I started using my abilities on the microphone to go to become a fundraising auctioneer. So I'm the third African-American to ever earn, it's called a benefit auctioneer specialist, which means I specialize in consulting and being a fundraising ambassador for nonprofits and businesses. And I got that during this process.
So you became an auctioneer?
Yes, sir.
So that's a skill, right? There's a training, I guess, on how to talk that fast and how to get people, encourage people to buy.
Yeah. So part of it is like there's talking that fast, but what people didn't understand was when you say auctioneer, it's not 10% of what you do as an auctioneer is actually on stage. The rest is actually consulting to make sure that you have the right items to sell, that you have the right people in the room who want to make the purchase, to make sure that you're marketing and advertising. So it allowed me to take, some of my past experiences working in retail, my degree, working at a college, and to combine all those into one. So the skill of bid calling, yes, that is a skill you have to go and develop, but then there are other skills off stage that you have to develop on how to contact people. And since I was a speaker, I already knew how to do contracts and knew how to prospect and how to look for events. So I got a chance once again to combine all these into just one profitable thing for me, but also for my client.
So now at this stage in your career, are you doing more of one thing than another, or is it kind of evenly dispersed among all the different things you're doing?
So the main income generator for me right now still is the keynote speaking. It's also the most lucrative. So I usually will go to conferences and events or corporate groups, and I'm either the opening keynote speaker or the closing keynote speaker. So that's my main piece. It's probably about 70% of my income. Then when it comes to the rest of it, it's probably a 50-50 split, 15%. I am actually coaching executives, CEOs, business owners on their public speaking. They want to get more confident on stage. But due to what I did 6 years ago, people have been watching. So several people started to come up and going, Frank, would you be able to coach me? I'm like, what would you like me to coach you on? Would you be able to coach me on how to become a professional speaker? I've been speaking for years. I've got this podcast, or as a teacher, I'm a company owner, but I've never gotten paid for it. Can you teach me how to do this? Because we saw that you picked yourself up off the ground and got paid. So can you teach that to us? So what happens is, as I said, I do fundraising for groups. I'm very selective which groups I work with. Then I do coaching, and then I do keynote speaking.
Now, when you're working with an aspiring public speaker, is that something that you believe, after doing it for a while, that everybody has in them? Or do you think that this is something where certain people who kind of have this innate ability to do it, and you're just helping them get better?
Let's do it this way. My last name is Kitchen. And I was just working with a group this morning, and I explained to the group, I was like, hey, it's like everybody I feel has the ability to cook. It's a skill that we can teach people. Now, how well you cook, that varies. And I said, I feel speaking is the same way. I believe we all have the ability to speak in public. But the case is, as you said, it's a skill that we have to develop and we have to embrace. And some people are going to be better than others. And I feel that people who truly embrace it and want to study, put the time into it, just like, you're on the radio. Anybody could be on radio, but only a few people can be, really great at what they do because they put the time and develop, that skill. So yes, I believe everybody has the ability to speak in public. How well they can speak in public depends on how well they develop that skill.
So now, after working with you, how do you have a story that you can share of maybe you took somebody that wasn't that great and you kind of took them to a new level? Like, obviously don't mention their names, but maybe mention what they were struggling with and then how you helped them overcome it.
Yeah, can do. So I'd moved from Ohio to Phoenix, Arizona, and I moved out right during when the economy tanked, 2007, 2008. So not a great time to really try to start a business or a career. So I was looking for different things to do, and like, what are my transferable skills? And I had a friend who worked over at the Phoenix Zoo and goes, hey, they need people to talk and do presentations and, come and, learn how the zoo works. I'm like, okay. So I started to go work in the experience department. So I'm doing talks and presentations around the zoo. And there's a young man who I'd seen there all the time. He's volunteering and he's got Down syndrome. So we developed a friendship. He's in high school, and he explains to me that he's going through this program where he's learning how to become a better public speaker. And I go, well, hey, I speak professionally on the side. So he goes, okay. So I gave him my business card and he took it home to his mom. So he's 16. And next thing you know, I get an email from his mom and she goes, hey, would you be willing to mentor my son? She goes, I see that you're from Ohio. We're from Ohio originally too. And she goes, I'd rather him work with somebody who knows how to speak. He said he's seen you speak at the zoo than somebody who doesn't. I'm like, okay. So here's this gentleman who's got Down syndrome. So he's got this big barrier and, he's not really shy, but the way he speaks and the style just, aren't, there. So we actually started to work together, and I started to work with him as a respite provider, and we started to hang out more and more. And he goes, hey, yeah, my dream is to become a professional speaker. I'm like, okay, well, let's work together on crafting a speech for you. But more importantly is find out how we can get you in your comfort zone. Because for many people I know who are public speakers, it's not how well the speech is written. It's a certain confidence they have in themselves to be able to deliver that speech. And if you're not confident in yourself, you can't deliver it. So for this young man, what we did was we figured out how to build out his slides, how to set up the room every time he was speaking, how to write out his speech within his diction. He has issues with memory, so how to actually write it out or script it to where it looks natural. And next thing you know, as we start to work with this, and I started to work with his mom on how to approach people and how to negotiate contracts, he ended up speaking all across the country. That's a basic story, but that was just something there where he's one of the first people I worked with. And I'm going, okay, if I can help somebody here who is a teenager, who has Down syndrome, has a little bit of a learning disability, people are like, oh yeah, it's going to be impossible for him. And next thing you know, I watch him on stages making people cry, in a good, positive way. I'm like, you know what? I can do this.
Now, do you think that if you were new to this and had the idea, okay, I want to be a speaker, what would you be doing to jumpstart a career?
So the first thing I would do for anybody trying to jumpstart a career, or if I went to it as far as speaking, is you got to be a good speaker. I mean, that's the first one, is you have to be able to deliver in front of an audience. You have to be able to speak in front of an audience. So generally I'll tell people, hey, you may want to take a public speaking class. You may want to take an improv class. You may want to take an acting class, but you have to be able to, perform on stage, in person, or in these world today, virtually. So if you can't speak and you don't have a comfort in speaking, the rest of the career is not really going to fall in line. So we have to have that piece first. And then the second one is, I get a lot of people who say, Frank, I want to be a motivational speaker. And it goes like, well, people don't book motivation. They don't pay you for that. That's just, getting people inspired and feeling good. What they do is people are paying for transformation. What are you doing to help people improve? What are you doing to improve people's productivity or bottom line? What are you doing to prevent people from doing something that's negative? That's what people are going. So you have to think about, what problem do you solve? So when people approach me, I always want to be a speaker, I want to be a motivational speaker. I go, what problem are you solving? Because that's what people hire people in to do, or compensate people for, especially if you're going to be a paid speaker. Because we have professional speakers who get paid for it. Then we have public speakers who just speak in public. And there is a difference. Public speakers worry about the speech. Professional speakers worry about the speech, but also how to deliver that speech and how to, acquire stages to deliver that speech and get compensated for it.
So once you have kind of the skills and you have, I guess, the topics that the content, how do you find the speaking opportunities?
Okay. Well, the main one is, we said we have to figure out what problem we're solving. So when we say what problem we're solving, we got to figure out, okay, who has that problem? And not only who has that problem, but who's willing to, pay for that, to have that problem fixed. Because if you and I were talking right now and said, hey, somebody will fix your car for free. Okay, well, we probably go like, okay, I might go do it. I'm not sure, but, anybody can do that. But when it comes to pain, you want to prove, that you can, solve that problem. So the idea is, I like to, explain to people, look for associations. So you're asking, like, who can do it? Associations always have professional development. They have conferences. They've got conventions. So generally I work with somebody, they'll say, hey, we'll pick on you, Lee, right now. Let's pick on you. I'm sure you're part of either like a radio or broadcasters association, some type of professional association for radio hosts and broadcasters, correct?
Correct.
So if my position is, hey, you know what? I work with radio personalities who want to better market themselves to, get more stages, then I'm going to go find out where all the radio people hang out. And it's going to probably be at networking events for radio people, conferences, conventions, associations. So the idea is, we have to figure out what problem you solve first. Then from there, figure out who has that problem. And then from there, we have to figure out who has that problem, is willing to pay to have it fixed. So I hope that makes, sense there. But generally, I tell people the first place to start out is associations, because associations have membership dues and they have fees. That means people are willing to invest to improve themselves. So if you are a speaker listening to this right now, whatever your field of specialty is, find an association for it. Like, quite simply, I coached some speakers a few months ago, and I showed them that there are goldfish conventions around the country, and people who love goldfish, and there are people who are getting paid to speak at goldfish conventions.
And that's part of the value when they hire you as a coach. You walk them through all of these things and really customize it to whatever the goal is of the aspiring speaker.
Yeah, it's like my wife says, I work to find their passion, because, people, when you speak, you have to either have a passion for what you're speaking on, or, an expertise or knowledge. That's what people want to go and do, because they can read through us if we don't believe in it. So I had a speaker recently who I'm coaching who came to me and goes, I want to be a motivational speaker, gave me his philosophy, like, okay, that's good. But then we discovered that his passion, he and his wife's passion, are shoes. So he just got back from a conference this weekend, and it is called SneakerCon. And it's on people who collect, custom limited edition tennis shoes, basketball shoes, Air Jordans, Nikes, all these shoes. And there's a conference from around the world. People came to it to, learn about shoes. So we've been teaching him, and he goes, hey, it was a great weekend. I marketed myself, talked to people, and he's getting some invitations now where he's going to be speaking on, because it's his passion, not on what the shoes are, but how to acquire the shoes. There are a lot of people want to collect these shoes that are anywhere from like $500 to thousands of dollars, but they don't know how to get it. He has figured out a system on how to do it. So I go, what we're going to do is we're going to sell your system, because the problem is there are people out there who want to get these limited edition shoes, but there's so many people going for it. They don't know how to acquire it or when to acquire it. He knows how to do it. He's been successful at it. He's got like 250 shoes in his house at his office when he's shown it to me. So now we're teaching him and helping him market on, okay, let's go find these conventions for you. Let's go find these people. Let's go see where they're hanging out, of which part of it's going to be hanging out on YouTube. So it's finding what your problem is, find out where your audience is, and then find where the audience hangs out so you can communicate to them how you will solve the problem. And even for him, you talk about coaching, we're even talking about the fact of teaching him how to have these virtual coaching sessions where instead of him trying to sell shoes to people, I told him it's more profitable if he teaches people how to go and find the shoes. And it's also less wear and tear on him and his wife.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations on all the success. It's a fantastic story. If somebody wants to learn more about all the things you have to offer, what is the website?
Okay, the website quite simply is www.frankkitchen.com. So my last name is spelled just like the room. So frankkitchen.com, 2 Ks in the middle. And then if you're a social media person, same thing. Look for Frank Kitchen. There's only one of me. So you can find me out there on the internet. But just reach out. And if you got any questions, I tell people no question is a stupid question. If you're going to reach out to me, I guarantee I'll get back to you within 24 hours to answer your question, because if it's important enough for you to contact me, I will get back to you because it's important.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Hey, thank you so much, Lee. I've had a great time being a guest on your show, and you keep doing the great work you do by having all the amazing guests on your show to just share how we can all become better.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Coach the Coach Radio.